exciting episode because I'm going to share with you one of those recipes that I don't usually share. It's usually kept under a lock and key, and this one is for all of my vegan friends out there. If you are vegan, you are going to love this. If you are not vegan, you are going to love this because it is super naughty tasting, super decadent. This is packed with protein, very low in refined sugar. It's actually kind of healthy for you, and there are no animal-based products in there, which is super exciting if you don't want to eat animal-based products. As I have said before, I don't believe just because that's the way that you want to eat, you absolutely have to miss out on all the good stuff. So I've set out to do yet another recipe for you guys that has that sort of, oh my effing god, that's so delicious factor of a dessert, but that is completely vegan friendly. If you get your ass into gear, this will literally take you 15 minutes to put together, and you will have a delicious dessert that you can eat on the same day. So with all of that said, let's make this thing. First thing you're going to need is one of these babies. For real, you're gonna need a sturdy food processor, and you're gonna love your equipment, guys. You treat it well, it treats you well. And you are going to need a pastry ring. So this is an 8-inch pastry ring, but obviously just use your common sense. You know, if you're going to use something a little bit smaller, then obviously your crust will be a little bit thicker and your filling will be a little bit higher. You might have to pile it rather than smooth it. No problems there, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, then you do you, baby. A springform pan will also work just fine here. Just make sure that you turn your plate over so that it's completely flat and it's not like kind of beveled on the sides, because that's a real pain to get out, and that's the difference with using a pastry ring, is that you'll get a completely flat surface and really sharp corners. So the first thing you want to start with is Oreos into your food processor, and we're going to grind those up. And you need to grind those up until they're a completely even sand texture. So this is the kind of texture that you're going for. It's a completely even, sandy-like crumb. Now you're going to melt down a vegan butter. Nuttelex, I've said this before, or any sort of vegan margarine is not something that you can substitute in this sort of recipe, because a vegan butter is something that actually will set to a solid form, and it's being used for its setting properties in the base. If you use a Nuttelex, it will not set the same way and you'll just ruin your base. Now the butter's completely melted, I'm going to just pour it over my crumbs, put the lid on and just pulse it through. Some people like to pour it in as the processor is working. I don't like to do that because the butter just goes everywhere. You also get pools of butter, and you have more of a chance to make your biscuit crumbs sloppy. So you just want to lightly turn the butter in until all the crumbs are coated. Okay, so that's all done now. I actually had to add a few more cookies, and it just depends on the type of vegan butter that you use. Some might have a lot more water in them than others, and that can dramatically affect how your crust comes out. So I think the safest bet would just be to slowly add in your butter until you've reached the consistency that you want, which is exactly like this. You really want like a wet sand looking texture. It should still be able to crumble in your hands, but it's wet enough to hold its shape when you squeeze it together. If it's wetter than that, it's just going to be this greasy, nasty base, and you probably won't even be able to shape it properly, and it'll just be lined and coated with fat, and you just don't want that. Just drizzle that in until you have this exact texture. But the correct recipe will all be typed down below in the description box. We want to get something hard that you can fit in your fridge, because we're going to set our shell while we make the filling. So I'm using a little wooden board, and I've put a little bit of baking paper underneath just to help it not stick so much. And you're going to place your tart ring and dump all of your crumbs in. Now this is your little creative moment. So you have crumbed walls and base, or you can just press it all into a base. I'm definitely going to be doing the walls because it's supposed to be a tart, so next you're going to need 200 grams of 70% chocolate, or anything that is vegan friendly. So break all those up into a bowl. It's satisfying. And we're going to melt this down until it's completely liquid, and then we can start on our filling. Okay, so now our chocolate is completely melted and hypnotic. Let's go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of brown rice syrup. You can also add any other sort of liquid sweetener, natural preferably, of your choice. So maple would work really well. Okay, so now in the food processor, we're going to add our first main ingredient, the base of our chocolate pie, and that is silken tofu. I have drained this out to get rid of any sort of excess liquid that's going to taste kind of soybeanish, because you don't want that extra liquid. But you can also use classic tofu for this if you chose not to use a crust. For this recipe, you're going to need silken tofu, and that's where the protein comes in. Silken tofu goes in. We're also going to add 2.5 tablespoons of any sort of plant-based milk that you want, 5 grams of dark cocoa powder, and also 1/8 of a teaspoon of table salt, and those are just in there together. Those are going in as well. 1 teaspoon of good quality vanilla extract. Blend those together until they're completely smooth before we pour in our chocolate. So before we add the chocolate, we're just going to open it up and give it a little scrape down first, just to make sure that we don't have any big chunky pieces of tofu or anything like that still chilling in there. And 1 more blend. So this is what you should be looking at, guys, before that chocolate gets blended in. It's super liquid and it doesn't look like it's gonna set, but don't worry, it will. Now I wish I could show you guys what happens as this blends, but I'm just not that crafty with the camera. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to turn the food processor on and stream the chocolate in through the top. And the chocolate's actually what's going to completely thicken up the tofu. So try not to pour in too slowly, because the chocolate will set and you don't want to get any chunks. You want to go quite quickly. So you can see how much it's thickened up. It's like crazy magic how thick it gets. So that's all done now, guys. This is actually like magic. Check that out. That is completely set now. It's like chocolate mousse, super thick, and that's all because of the chocolate that we've streamed in there. So just blend it until it's nice and silky the way that you want it. And for an optional, you could also add in like 1/4 cup of smooth or crunchy peanut butter if you wanted to, and that would be so good. You could also add some instant coffee if you like. There's so many possibilities. Whatever you like to have with chocolate, you could definitely mix that into this base and they would go so well. So that's all finished now. Super simple and easy. As you can see, we're just going to put that into our tart, smooth it over, set, and we're done. So you'll want to smooth the surface of your tart out with a mini offset palette knife, and you can do ripples or completely smooth down, that's totally up to you. Decorate it any way that you like, and then make sure that you chill it until it's completely firm before portioning. I know it's not, but why does this feel so naughty?